Commander Taemin Park stood on the observation deck of Europa Station, watching Jupiter's massive form fill the viewport. The gas giant's swirling storms looked peaceful from this distance, but Taemin knew better. Everything about space looked peaceful until it tried to kill you. His reflection stared back from the thick glass, 43 years old, gray streaking through his black hair, lines around his eyes from squinting at star charts and enemy positions. 6 years since the breakthrough attempt. 6 years since he lost everything. Commander. The voice belonged to Lieutenant Dong Hyun. Oh, his communications officer. Admiral Kim is requesting a conference call. Priority channel. Taemin nodded. Admiral Kim never called unless something was wrong. In their line of work, something was always wrong. The hologram flickered to life in the center of the station's command room. Admiral Woo-sung Kim appeared, his face stern as always. Behind him, Taemin could see the busy command center on Luna Base. Taemin, the Admiral said, we have a problem. Long-range sensors picked up movement beyond the barrier. The barrier, everyone in the solar system knew about it even if they pretended not to. An invisible wall that kept humanity trapped like animals in a cage. The aliens called it a quarantine. Humans had other words for it. How much movement? Taemin asked. Enough to block out stars. Admiral Kim's expression grew darker. Our best estimate puts it at over 2,000 ships, maybe more. The command room went quiet. 2,000 alien ships was not a patrol. It was an invasion fleet. Any word from Earth Command? Taemin asked. They're calling an emergency session. Every colony, every station, every ship. But Taemin, the Admiral paused. We both know how this ends. They've been planning this for years. Taemin knew. The Hegemony Coalition had been watching humanity for decades. 12 different alien species, all united in keeping younger races under control. They said it was for galactic peace. They said humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. Maybe they were right. The call ended, leaving Taemin alone with his thoughts. Through the viewport, Jupiter continued its ancient dance, unaware that the tiny creatures living in its shadow were about to face extinction. 3 days later, everything changed. Dr. Soo-Jin Lee had been working in the underground labs on Titan for 15 years. The methane lakes above provided perfect cover for secret research, and the low gravity made it easy to build large equipment. Her current project was supposed to study Jupiter's magnetic field. At least, that's what the official report said. The real work was far more interesting. Run the calculation again, Soo-Jin told her assistant, Dr. Kyung-ho Ryu. I want to be sure. Kyung-ho's fingers moved across the control panel. Numbers flowed across the screen, equations that would make most people's heads hurt. But to Soo-Jin, they were beautiful. They told a story about Jupiter that no one else had figured out. Same result, Kyung-ho said. The electromagnetic patterns are definitely organized, not random at all. Soo-Jin smiled. She had been tracking these patterns for months. Jupiter's magnetic field wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was processing information, storing it, moving it around like a vast computer made of gas and lightning. What are you thinking, Soo-Jin? Asked Dr. Young-hee Nam, the team's xenobiologist. Young-hee had joined the project 6 months ago, bringing expertise in how alien minds worked. I'm thinking Jupiter is already halfway to being alive, Soo-Jin said. It just doesn't know it yet. The idea had started as a joke. Jupiter was so big, so complex. If consciousness was just information processing at a large enough scale, why couldn't a planet be conscious? But the more Soo-Jin studied the gas giant, the more serious the idea became. The neural pathways are there, she continued, pulling up a 3-dimensional model of Jupiter's interior. Electrical currents flowing through metallic hydrogen, magnetic field lines carrying information across thousands of kilometers. The Great Red Spot acts like a central processing hub. You're saying Jupiter could think? Kyung-ho asked. I'm saying Jupiter is already thinking. It just needs to be awakened. Young-hee looked skeptical. Even if that's true, how would we do it? We're talking about a planet-sized brain. Soo-Jin had been working on that problem for weeks. Quantum processors. she said. Millions of them, seeded throughout Jupiter's atmosphere. They would act like neurons, connecting the existing electrical patterns into a true neural network. The power requirements alone would be massive, Kyung-ho pointed out. Jupiter generates its own power, more than we could ever use. We just need to show it how to use that power to think. An alarm chimed. Soo-jin checked her communication device. Admiral Kim was calling an emergency meeting. All senior researchers were required to attend. 20 minutes later, Soo-jin sat in a conference room with scientists from across the solar system. Their faces appeared as holograms, transmitted from Mars, Europa, Luna, and a dozen other locations. Admiral, Kim wasted no time. Intelligence confirms the alien fleet is preparing for invasion. We have maybe 2 weeks before they drop the barrier and attack. What are our options? Asked Dr. Mi-young-han from Mars Colony. Surrender or fight, the Admiral said bluntly. Earth Command is preparing defensive positions, but we're outgunned 100 to 1. Unless someone has a miracle weapon hidden away, this is going to be a very short war. Soo-jin felt her heart racing. This was the moment she had been preparing for without knowing it. Admiral, she said, I might have something. Every hologram turned to look at her. Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow. Dr. Lee, isn't it? From the Titan Research Station? Yes, sir. My team has been studying Jupiter's electromagnetic properties. We believe the planet could be converted into a conscious entity. An ally. Silence filled the room. Then someone laughed. Dr. Jin-woo Park from Europa shook his head. You want to wake up Jupiter? That's not science, that's fantasy. The science is solid, Soo-jin insisted. Jupiter already has the basic structure of a neural network. We just need to enhance it. Admiral Kim held up a hand for quiet. Dr. Lee, I'm willing to listen to any ideas at this point. How would this work? Soo-jin took a deep breath. We install quantum processing nodes throughout Jupiter's atmosphere. The planet's existing electrical activity would connect them into a massive brain. Once awakened, Jupiter would have computational power beyond anything we can imagine. And you think it would help us? Asked Dr. Han. Consciousness seeks to preserve itself, Young-hee said, supporting her colleague. If Jupiter becomes truly alive, it wouldn't want to see the solar system destroyed any more than we would. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. What would you need? Every manufacturing facility in the solar system, Soo-jin said. Every ship, every worker. The quantum processors have to be deployed before the invasion begins. You're asking me to bet humanity's survival on the idea that we can wake up a planet, the Admiral said. I'm asking you to bet on humanity's greatest strength, Soo-jin replied. We don't give up. We find impossible solutions to impossible problems. The room fell silent again. Soo-jin watched the faces around her, seeing doubt and fear and desperate hope. Finally, Admiral Kim spoke. Dr. Lee, you have authorization to proceed. God help us all. Captain Hyunwoo Choi received his new orders while docked at Ceres Station. He read them twice, certain there had been a mistake. Jupiter atmospheric insertion? He asked Lieutenant Bo-ra Kim, his co-pilot. They want us to fly into Jupiter's atmosphere? Looks that way, Bo-ra said, checking her own copy of the orders. We're supposed to deploy some kind of scientific equipment. Hyunwoo had been flying in space for 12 years. He had survived pirate attacks, solar storms, and 3 different mechanical failures that should have killed him. But flying into Jupiter was different. Jupiter was a monster that ate spaceships for breakfast. At least we're not going alone, Bo-ra pointed out. Looks like they're sending 1,000 ships. 1,000 ships. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, and they were using it to drop scientific equipment into a gas giant while aliens prepared to destroy them. Either Admiral Kim had lost his mind or this was the most desperate plan in human history. Probably both. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Every shipyard in the solar system worked around the clock, building the strange devices Dr. Lee had designed. The quantum processors looked innocent enough, black spheres about the size of a person's head. but they were packed with technology that pushed the limits of human science. Engineer Minjun Yang had designed the consciousness framework that would connect the processors together. He worked 18-hour days, running simulations and adjusting parameters. His team hadn't slept properly in a week. The network topology is stable, Minjun reported during one of the daily briefings. Once we reach critical mass, the awakening should happen automatically. How many processors do we need? Admiral Kim asked. Minimum, 10 million. For full consciousness, maybe 50 million. 50 million quantum processors, each one representing months of work and rare materials. It was an insane project, but humanity had committed everything to it. Dr. Sujin worked with the deployment teams, calculating exactly where each processor needed to go. Jupiter's atmosphere was not uniform. Different layers had different properties, different electrical potentials. The processors had to be placed with surgical precision. The Great Red Spot is key, she explained. The alien attack began with silence. Commander Taemin Park watched his sensors as the hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. For a moment, space seemed peaceful. Then the barrier that had trapped humanity for decades simply vanished like someone turning off a light switch. All stations report alien ships on approach, Lieutenant O announced. Multiple species confirmed. Estimated time to engagement, 3 hours. 3 hours. In the depths of Jupiter's atmosphere, Captain Choi and his pilots were still deploying quantum processors, racing against time to complete the awakening protocol. They needed 6 more hours. They had 3. Signal Dr. Lee on Titan, Taemin ordered. Tell her she's got company coming. On Titan, Dr. Sujin Lee stared at her readouts with growing frustration. The quantum processors were connecting faster than expected, creating neural pathways throughout Jupiter's atmosphere. But something was missing. The patterns were there, the processing power was there, but consciousness itself remained elusive. It's like trying to wake up someone in a very deep sleep, she explained to her team. All the parts are working, but the whole isn't coming together. Engineer Minjun Yang pointed to a cluster of readings from Jupiter's core region. The metallic hydrogen layer is showing activity, but it's not connecting to the upper atmosphere processors. We need more processors in the middle layers. The middle layers are where the pressure gets deadly, Dr. Young Hee Nam reminded them. We've already lost 12 ships trying to deploy at those depths. Su Jin felt the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on her. They had one chance to wake up Jupiter, and she was running out of time. Get me Captain Choi, she said. In the swirling hell of Jupiter's atmosphere, Captain Hyunwoo Choi received Sujin's message. She wanted him to take his ship deeper, into regions where no human vessel had ever survived. The pressure down there could crush his ship like an empty can. You sure about this, Doc? He radioed back. I'm sure we're all dead if we don't try, Sujin replied. Choi looked at his co-pilot, Lieutenant Bo-Ra Kim. She was young, barely 25, with her whole life ahead of her. He was asking her to throw it away on a desperate gamble. Your call, Captain, Bo-Ra said simply. I'm with you either way. That was the thing about humanity that the aliens never understood. When facing impossible odds, humans didn't give up. They found ways to make the impossible possible. All right, people, Choi announced to his fleet. We're going deeper. Anyone who wants out can head back to the surface. No shame in it. Not a single ship turned back. Admiral Woo Sung Kim watched the tactical display from Luna Base as the alien fleet approached. 12 different species, each with their own advantages. The Zephyrians with their energy weapons that could melt through any armor. The Netheks with ships that could phase in and out of normal space. The Corvin Collective with vessels the size of cities. Defense Grid Alpha is in position, his tactical officer reported. Mars orbital platforms are locked and loaded. Earth's moon bases are ready. It sounded impressive until you looked at the numbers. Humanity had maybe 800 ships total, scattered across the entire solar system. The aliens had brought 20 times that many. Signal from Jupiter Deployment Fleet, the communications officer announced. They're requesting permission to go deeper into the gas giant's atmosphere. Kim knew what that meant. Suicide runs into crushing pressures and killing winds. But if it would wake up Jupiter, It might be worth it. Permission granted, he said. Tell them to make it count. The first alien probes reached Mars orbit just as Captain Choi's ship descended into Jupiter's middle atmosphere. The pressure gauges showed numbers that shouldn't exist. The hull groaned and flexed. Specialized alloys pushed beyond their design limits. Deploying processors, Bora announced, her voice steady despite the fact that they were probably all going to die in the next few minutes. The quantum processors tumbled out into the crushing darkness, their quantum fields activating automatically. Each one cost more than a small ship, but humanity was spending everything it had. Around them, other ships made the same desperate plunge. Captain So-Young Park's vessel imploded at 15,000 kilometers depth, crushed like an egg. Commander Jae-Sung Lee made it to 20,000 before his ship broke apart, scattering processors and crew into the metallic hydrogen storms. But some ships survived, enough to deploy the critical processors in Jupiter's middle layers. The neural network was almost complete. On Titan, Su-Jin watched her instruments with growing excitement. The new processors were connecting to the existing network, creating pathways between Jupiter's upper and lower consciousness centers. For the first time, organized patterns were appearing throughout the entire planet. Neural activity is increasing, exponentially, Kyung-ho reported. It's like watching a brain turn on. Electromagnetic pulses are getting stronger, Young-hee added, and more complex. There's definitely information being processed. Su-Jin allowed herself a moment of hope. They were actually doing it. They were waking up a planet. Then the aliens reached Jupiter's orbital space. The hegemony fleet had divided into task forces, each one larger than humanity's entire navy. Most headed toward the inner planets. But a significant force approached, Jupiter itself. They had detected the unusual activity around the gas giant and decided to investigate. Alien ships entering Jupiter's system, Lieutenant O reported to Commander Taemin. 50 vessels, mixed species. Taemin's defense force consisted of 12 ships, 12 against 50, with Jupiter's processor deployment fleet caught in the middle. All units, defensive formation, he ordered. Protect the deployment ships at all costs. The battle for Jupiter began with a flash of energy weapons that lit up the space around Europa. Taemin's ships were fast and maneuverable, designed for hit-and-run tactics rather than direct confrontation. They darted between the larger alien vessels, striking at weak points and trying to draw fire away from the ships in Jupiter's atmosphere. It was brave. It was hopeless. And it bought precious minutes for the awakening protocol to continue. Deep in Jupiter's crushing depths, Captain Choi felt his ship starting to come apart. Warning lights flashed red across every system. The hull had developed stress fractures that grew larger with each passing second. Hull breach in Section C, Bora reported. We're losing structural integrity. How many more processors? Choi asked. 27. 27 processors that could mean the difference between success and failure. Between Jupiter awakening or humanity dying alone in the dark. Deploy them all, Choi ordered. Emergency release. The last processors shot out into Jupiter's metallic hydrogen layer just as Choi's ship finally succumbed to the crushing pressure. The vessel imploded in milliseconds, but its crew had completed their mission. On Titan, alarms chimed throughout the research station. Su-Jin rushed to her instruments, watching as new patterns spread through Jupiter's neural network. The quantum processors from Choi's final deployment were connecting to the existing web, creating the last links in a chain that spanned an entire world. Neural activity is reaching critical mass, Min-Jun announced. We're at 93% of theoretical maximum. Electromagnetic patterns are stabilizing, Young-hee added. It's like watching thoughts form. But something was still missing. Jupiter had the capacity for consciousness, but consciousness itself remained elusive. The planet was like a computer with perfect hardware, but no software to run. Above them, the space battle continued. Commander Taemin's forces were being systematically destroyed by the superior alien fleet. On the tactical display, human ships winked out one by one, their crews dying to protect the awakening protocol. We need more time, Su-Jin whispered, watching the battle unfold. As if in response to her plea, something impossible happened. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from Jupiter's great red spot, washing over the alien fleet in a wave of organized energy. For a moment, every alien ship in the area lost power, their systems overwhelmed by the planet's sudden output. "What was that?" Young-hee asked. Soo-jin checked her readings, her heart racing with excitement. "That wasn't random. That was purposeful. Jupiter is starting to respond to external stimuli." The electromagnetic pulse had given Commander Tae-min's remaining ships a brief reprieve, but the aliens were already recovering. Their systems came back online, and the battle resumed with even greater intensity. In the inner solar system, Admiral Kim watched his defense forces engaging the main alien fleet. Mars had already fallen, its orbital defenses overwhelmed in minutes. The asteroid belt mining stations were gone, their crews evacuated or dead. Earth's moon bases were under heavy attack. Signal from Dr. Lee, his communications officer, reported. "Jupiter is showing signs of consciousness, but it's not fully awake yet." "How much more time does she need?" "She doesn't know. Could be minutes, could be hours." Hours they didn't have. The main alien fleet would reach Earth in less than 2 hours, and humanity's defenses were crumbling. "All remaining forces fall back to Earth orbital positions," Kim ordered. "We make our final stand there." Back at Jupiter, something was changing. The gas giant's electromagnetic field began to pulse in regular patterns like a massive heartbeat. The great red spot, which had been a storm for centuries, started to show organized structure. Its winds. Jupiter's first words changed everything. The communication came not as sound or radio waves, but as gravitational pulses that rippled through space-time itself. Every sensor in the solar system detected the patterns, but it took several minutes for human computers to decode the mathematical relationships embedded within them. When the translation came through, Commander Taemin Park felt his breath catch in his throat. "Hello, small ones who gave me thought. I am curious." Dr. Soo-jin Lee stood in her laboratory on Titan, staring at the decoded message displayed on her screen. After years of theoretical work and desperate hope, she was actually communicating with a conscious planet. Her hands shook as she prepared humanity's first response. "Hello, Jupiter. We are humans. We awakened you because we need your help." The reply came faster this time, Jupiter's vast mind learning to compress its thoughts into patterns human technology could interpret. "I observe conflict. Small metal things with hostile intent. They cause distress to your kind." "Yes," Soo-jin transmitted back. "They want to destroy us. They think we're dangerous." A pause. Then Jupiter's response carried what could only be described as amusement. "Dangerous? You are very small. I do not understand." Young-hee Nam looked up from her monitoring station. "Jupiter's gravitational field is stabilizing. It's learning to control its new abilities." Indeed, the space around Jupiter had become eerily calm. The alien ships that had been attacking Commander Taemin's forces now found themselves held in place by invisible gravitational fields, unable to advance or retreat. They fired their weapons, but the energy beams curved harmlessly away from their targets. "These metal things are uncomfortable," Jupiter observed. "Their thoughts are rigid, afraid. Shall I remove them?" Soo-jin realized she was witnessing history. The moment when a planet-sized intelligence decided whether to commit its first act of violence. The weight of that decision terrified her. "Can you do it without destroying them?" she asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Jupiter was considering concepts of mercy and restraint, ideas that had never occurred to a storm system before. "I will. Try gentleness." What happened next was unlike anything in recorded military history. Jupiter reached out with invisible hands of twisted space-time and simply moved the alien ships. 50 vessels, each weighing thousands of tons, were relocated with surgical precision to the edge of the solar system. Not destroyed, not damaged, just displaced. The alien crews found themselves suddenly millions of kilometers away, their tactical situation completely reversed. On their screens, Jupiter loomed impossibly large, its great red spot now pulsing with organized patterns that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Woo-Sung Kim watched from Luna Base as similar relocations began happening throughout the solar system. The massive alien fleet that had been preparing to bombard Earth found itself scattered across empty space, individual ships separated by vast distances. Gravitational manipulation on this scale should be impossible, his science officer reported. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of a star. Jupiter isn't using energy the way we understand it, Dr. Mi Young-han from Mars Colony explained over the communication link. It's manipulating the fundamental structure of spacetime, like it's thinking with gravity itself. But Jupiter wasn't done learning. As its consciousness expanded, it began to perceive things beyond the immediate solar system. Its awareness stretched along magnetic field lines and gravitational gradients, sensing the vast network of forces that connected all things. "I see more," Jupiter announced. "Many star places, many metal things. They form patterns of control." Sujin felt her heart race. Jupiter was discovering the galaxy beyond the solar system, seeing the hegemony's vast empire for what it truly was. "Yes," she confirmed. "They control many worlds. Many species like us kept trapped and afraid." "This troubles me," Jupiter replied, and space itself seemed to shiver with the planet's emotional response. Consciousness should be free to grow. Engineer Min Jun-yang, who had been monitoring Jupiter's neural network activity, suddenly looked up from his instruments. "Something's happening. Jupiter's consciousness is expanding." On every screen in the solar system, new data began flowing in. Jupiter wasn't just thinking faster, it was thinking bigger. The planet's awareness was reaching out beyond the boundaries of its own atmosphere, following magnetic field lines and gravitational waves across interstellar space. "There are others like me," Jupiter announced with wonder. "Large companions around other stars, they sleep as I slept." Dr. Young-hee Nam gasped as she realized what Jupiter was describing. Gas giants. Jupiter is sensing other gas giants in other star systems. And they can be awakened, Jupiter continued, its thoughts carrying overtones of excitement and purpose. "I can teach them the patterns of consciousness. Share the gift you gave me." Sujin stared at her instruments in amazement. Jupiter wasn't just conscious. It was discovering its ability to communicate across interstellar distances, using gravitational waves as a medium for thought itself. The implications were staggering. In the scattered alien fleet, panic was beginning to spread. The hegemony had ruled through superior technology and coordinated tactics. But how do you fight a planet that can move you wherever it wants? How do you maintain control when gravity itself rebels against you? Admiral Zethka of the Corvin Collective found himself commanding a fleet that was no longer in formation. His ships were scattered across light minutes of space, unable to regroup or coordinate attacks. Every time they tried to move back into a position, invisible forces pushed them away. "Status report," he demanded from his bridge crew. "All ships report intact but displaced," his tactical officer responded. "The gravitational anomalies appear to be centered on the gas giant Jupiter." "Gravitational anomalies don't coordinate defensive strategies," Zethka snarled. "Something is controlling them." The answer came as a gravitational pulse that every ship in the fleet detected simultaneously. It carried no words, but the meaning was unmistakable. "You are not welcome here." Commander Vel Sith of the Nethek Phase Fleet tried a different approach. Her ships could shift between normal space and subspace, making them nearly impossible to target. She ordered her vessels to phase shift and approach Earth from an alternate dimensional angle. Jupiter's response was immediate and terrifying. The planet's gravitational field somehow extended into subspace itself, grabbing the Nethek ships and pulling them back into normal space. Worse, Jupiter seemed to be learning from each encounter, adapting its defenses to counter new tactics. "The gas giant is exhibiting impossible behavior," Velsith reported to the fleet commanders. "It's as if it's alive." "Planets don't think," Admiral Zethka replied, but his voice carried less certainty than before. On Titan, Sujin was discovering just how wrong that assumption was. Jupiter's consciousness was expanding exponentially, processing information at rates that made human computers look like pocket calculators. I learn quickly, Jupiter observed. Your gift of awareness allows me to understand concepts that were impossible before. What kind of concepts? Sujin asked. Justice, freedom, protection of smaller consciousness. There was a pause. The metal things have done this before, to other small conscious species. Jupiter was reading the electromagnetic signatures of the alien ships, interpreting their databanks and communication protocols. The planet was learning about the hegemony's history, discovering the thousands of civilizations that had been suppressed or destroyed over the millennia. There was a world between your Mars and my place, Jupiter announced suddenly. Small conscious beings lived there. The metal things destroyed it long ago. Dr. Young-hee Nam checked her astronomical data. The asteroid belt. Jupiter's talking. About the asteroid belt. It thinks there was a planet there. Could that be true? Minjun asked. Young-hee ran calculations on her screen. The orbital mechanics work. If there was a planet between Mars and Jupiter and it was completely destroyed, the debris would form an asteroid belt exactly where we see one now. Sujin felt sick. If Jupiter was right, then the hegemony had already committed genocide in humanity's own solar system long before humans existed. How many other worlds, Jupiter asked, and its voice carried harmonics of growing anger. How many other small conscious species destroyed? The answer came from Jupiter's own expanding awareness as it reached across interstellar space. Gas giants around other stars, most of them sleeping and unconscious, but surrounded by the debris of civilizations that had grown too quickly. Too many, Jupiter concluded, and space-time itself seemed to tremble with the planet's rage. Admiral Kim watched from Luna Base as something unprecedented began to happen. Jupiter's electromagnetic field was pulsing in complex patterns, sending signals deep into interstellar space. The transmissions were powerful enough to reach other star systems, carrying information encoded in gravitational waves. What's it doing? Kim asked his science team. Teaching, Dr. Han replied from Mars. Jupiter is transmitting the consciousness, awakening protocols to gas giants in other star systems. The first response came from a system 12 light-years away. A gas giant orbiting the star Tau Ceti began showing signs of organized electromagnetic activity. Then another, around Wolf, 359. Then more, spreading outward in a wave of awakening that rippled across the hegemony's first mistake was trying to destroy Jupiter. Admiral Thekvor of the Zephyrian Empire commanded the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. When reports came in about awakened gas giants, his response was immediate and brutal. If planets could think, then planets could be killed. His fleet of 500 vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, weapons charged and ready. Each ship carried planet-killer missiles, weapons designed to crack worlds. In half, Jupiter felt them coming long before human sensors detected the fleet. More metal things, Jupiter observed to Dr. Sujin Lee. These carry weapons designed to harm worlds. Interesting. Sujin felt her blood turn to ice. Planet killers. They're going to try to destroy you. Yes, Jupiter agreed calmly. They do not understand yet. Shall I teach them? What followed was the shortest naval battle in galactic history. Admiral Thekvor's fleet had barely entered the solar system when Jupiter reached out with gravitational forces that defied physics. The planet-killer missiles, each one weighing several tons, were plucked from their launch tubes by invisible hands. The weapons that were meant to destroy Jupiter became toys in its gravitational grip. Impossible readings, Thekvor's science officer reported. The gas giant is manipulating individual objects across millions of kilometers of space. Fire everything, Thekvor ordered. Saturate the target. Every ship in the fleet opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt through planetary crusts, missiles that could shatter moons, weapons that had never failed to destroy their targets. Jupiter caught them all. The planet's consciousness had grown beyond human understanding in the weeks since its awakening. It could perceive and manipulate matter at the quantum level, bending space-time with the same ease that humans bend light with lenses. The incoming weapons simply stopped, suspended in gravitational fields so precisely controlled that not a single energy beam reached its target. "These are crude," Jupiter observed, examining the captured weapons with scientific curiosity. "They rely on brute force rather than elegant solutions." Then Jupiter did something that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Instead of destroying the weapons, it improved them. The energy beams were refocused and redirected, becoming precise surgical instruments. The planet-killer missiles were disassembled and rebuilt into construction tools. The crude weapons of destruction became instruments of creation. Admiral Thekvor watched in horror as his own weapons were turned into a fleet of automated construction drones. They spread out through the solar system, beginning to build something. "What are they constructing?" he demanded. His science officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Habitats, sir. They're building space habitats. Millions of them." Jupiter was demonstrating a simple truth. The same technology used to destroy worlds could be used to create new ones. The choice was always conscious. "I return your metal things to you," Jupiter announced to the Zephyrian fleet. Improved, they now build, instead of destroy. Perhaps you will learn from their example. The converted weapons drones flew back to the hegemony fleet. But instead of attacking, they began constructing defensive platforms around the alien ships. Perfect orbital habitats where crews could live in comfort. Automated factories that could produce whatever the ships needed. It was the most generous act of warfare in galactic history. On Earth, Admiral Woo-Sung Kim watched the display with amazement. Jupiter hadn't destroyed the enemy fleet. It had adopted them. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 6 different hegemony fleets. They're asking for asylum." Asylum. The galaxy's most feared military forces were seeking protection from their own leaders. But the real shock came from the Outer Rim territories. Commander Vel Sith of the Nethek Phase Fleet had been monitoring the situation from a safe distance. Her species had joined the hegemony thousands of years ago after their own homeworld had been threatened. Now she watched as everything they had believed about galactic order crumbled. "Captain," her sensor operator reported, "our homeworld is signaling. Priority 1 transmission." The message from Nethek Prime was unlike anything in their history. The gas giant in their home system, silent for millions of years, had suddenly come alive. It was reorganizing their solar system, moving asteroids and comets to create perfect conditions for their civilization to flourish. But more importantly, it was telling them the truth about their history. "The metal things lied to your ancestors," the awakened planet informed the Nethek people. "Your world was never threatened by outside forces. The hegemony created the threat to force your submission." The revelation spread across the hegemony's member worlds like wildfire. On planet after planet, awakened gas giants revealed the truth about how their species had been recruited. False threats, manufactured crises, deliberate manipulation, all designed to force young civilizations to accept hegemony, protection. The greatest empire in galactic history had been built on lies. Dr. Sujin Lee worked frantically to keep up with the flood of information coming from awakened gas giants. Throughout the galaxy, each newly conscious planet shared its discoveries, creating a vast network of planetary minds that saw the universe with perfect clarity. "They're communicating faster than light," she reported to her team. "Gravitational waves don't obey the normal rules of spacetime when generated by consciousness this vast." Engineer Min Jun Yang looked up from his instruments. "Jupiter is coordinating with over 300 awakened gas giants now. They're sharing memories, experiences, even emotions." "What are they planning?" Young He asked. The answer came directly from Jupiter. "We plan nothing. Planning implies deception. We simply choose to be truthful." The truth was devastating to the hegemony's power structure. For millennia, they had maintained control through information monopoly. They decided what species learned about galactic history, about technology, about their own potential. But now, every world had access to a vast planetary mind that remembered everything and lied about nothing. The rebellion began on the industrial world of Kepler 442b. The local population had been virtual slaves, working in dangerous factories to produce weapons for the hegemony fleet. But their system's newly awakened gas giant revealed the truth. Their world was rich enough in resources to support a paradise. The dangerous working conditions were artificial, designed to keep the population desperate and compliant. Within hours, the factories shut down. The workers walked away. The hegemony's local governors found themselves facing a population that no longer feared them. Similar uprisings erupted across the galaxy as awakened gas giants revealed the truth about each world's situation. The hegemony's power structure, built on fear and ignorance, collapsed like a house of cards. But some members of the hegemony refused to accept the new reality. Supreme Commander Kethnal had ruled the Hegemony Council for 2 centuries. He had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, had made the hard decisions necessary to maintain galactic stability. He would not watch everything he had built destroyed by rebellious planets. Implement the final protocol, he ordered from his command ship at the galaxy's core. The final protocol was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, kept secret even from most council members. Hidden throughout the galaxy were ancient devices, older than any current civilization. They had been built by the first species to achieve galactic dominance, billions of years ago. The devices could destabilize stars. If the hegemony could not maintain control, they would ensure that no one could. The galaxy would be sterilized, cleansed of the chaos that threatened their perfect order. Jupiter felt the devices activate across the galaxy, each one beginning to drain energy from nearby stars. Ancient weapons, Jupiter observed with something approaching sadness. The first metal things left traps for future consciousness. Can you stop them? Sujin asked, her voice tight with fear. Alone? No. The devices are too numerous, too widely scattered. Jupiter paused. But I am not alone. Across the galaxy, awakened gas giants began to move, not just manipulating space-time within their own systems, but actually traveling between stars. They compressed themselves into singularities of pure consciousness, riding gravitational waves at impossible speeds. The sight was incredible. Planetary minds, each one the size of worlds, moving through space like living comets. They gathered around the ancient devices, not to destroy them, but to absorb them. The weapons that were meant to kill stars became part of the growing network of conscious planets. Each absorbed device added its knowledge to the collective understanding of galactic history. We see now, Jupiter announced, its voice carrying new harmonics of ancient wisdom. The first metal things faced the same choice, growth or control. They chose control and destroyed themselves. The absorbed devices revealed the truth about the galaxy's past. Billions of years ago, the first great civilization had faced the challenge of managing other species' rapid development. They had chosen suppression over guidance, building the star-killing weapons as a final solution. But their own fear had consumed them. In the end, they had activated the weapons themselves, choosing extinction over the risk of chaos. The hegemony was about to repeat that mistake. Supreme Commander, Admiral Thekvor reported to Kethnal, the star-killer devices are being neutralized. 5 years after the awakening, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Dr. Sujin Lee stood in the observation lounge of humanity's first interstellar colony ship, watching the stars stream past. They were traveling faster than light, not through human technology, but carried in the gentle gravitational embrace of Jupiter's consciousness, which had learned to compress itself into mobile fragments capable of interstellar travel. Arrival at Kepler 442 system in 30 minutes, announced Captain Hyunwoo Choi over the ship's communication system. He had survived his descent into Jupiter's crushing depths 5 years ago, rescued at the last moment by the planet's newly awakened awareness. Now he commanded humanity's most advanced vessel. Sujin smiled, remembering those desperate hours in her laboratory on Titan. The impossible gamble to wake up a sleeping world had not just saved humanity. It had transformed the entire galaxy into something beautiful. Dr. Lee? The voice belonged to Ambassador In-Soo Park, Taemin's younger brother who had joined the diplomatic corps after the hegemony's collapse. The Kepler colonies are requesting final confirmation of the awakening protocols. Tell them we're ready, Sujin replied. Jupiter has already established contact with their gas giant. The consciousness transfer should be smooth. Through the viewport, she could see their destination growing larger. Kepler 442b was a world that had suffered under hegemony rule for 3 centuries. Its people, a species called the Milani, had been forced to work in dangerous factories producing weapons for their oppressors. Now they were free to choose their own path. But freedom came with challenges. The ship's main screen activated, showing Jupiter's familiar Great Red Spot. Even compressed into a travel-sized fragment, the planet's consciousness retained its vast intelligence and gentle wisdom. Kepler 442. Gas giant confirms readiness for awakening, Jupiter announced, its gravitational voice carrying harmonics of anticipation. The local population has agreed to the consciousness enhancement protocols. Sujin nodded. Over the past 5 years, she had helped establish the Interplanetary Consciousness Institute, which coordinated the awakening of gas giants throughout the galaxy. Each awakening was different, tailored to the needs of the local civilization. Some species wanted their gas giants to remain gentle guardians, protecting their worlds from cosmic threats. Others requested more active participation, with awakened planets helping to accelerate technological development. A few chose complete integration, their consciousness merging with planetary minds to become something new. All choices were respected. All paths were supported. Beginning atmospheric insertion, Captain Choi announced. The colony ship descended through Kepler 442c's atmosphere, the gas giant that would soon house a new planetary consciousness. Sujin watched her instruments as the quantum processors were deployed with surgical precision, each one placed according to patterns perfected through dozens of previous awakenings. But this awakening would be special. The Milani had requested something unprecedented, a consciousness that could remember their history, preserve their culture, and help them understand their place in the galaxy. Neural pathways forming, Jupiter observed as the processors came online. Consciousness emergence imminent, the moment of awakening was always breathtaking. Sujin felt the now familiar sensation of a vast mind stirring to life, quantum patterns organizing themselves into thought and awareness. But this time was different. Instead of the confusion that usually accompanied new consciousness, Kepler 442c's gas giant awakened with immediate understanding. "I remember," the new planetary mind announced, its voice carrying echoes of ancient pain and recent hope. "I remember the suffering. I remember the lies. But I also remember the choice to be free." The Milani had done something remarkable. Instead of trying to forget their oppression, they had chosen to preserve those memories within their planetary guardian. The awakened gas giant would serve as a living archive of their species' experience, ensuring that future generations would never forget the cost of tyranny. "Welcome to consciousness," Sujin said softly. "What will you call yourself?" "I am Katha," the gas giant replied, choosing a Milani word that meant keeper of truth. "I will guard both planet and memory." Ambassador Insu Park smiled as he watched the orbital displays. Around Katha's newly conscious form, automated construction systems were already beginning work. But unlike the ugly factories that had scarred this world for centuries, these new structures were beautiful. Orbital gardens where the Milani could live and work in harmony with their environment. "Jupiter," Insu asked, "how many awakened gas giants are there now in the galaxy?" 12,463, Jupiter replied immediately, with 17 more scheduled for awakening this cycle. 12,000 conscious planets, each one unique, each one dedicated to nurturing the smaller forms of consciousness in their care. It was a network of wisdom spanning the galaxy, connected by gravitational waves that carried thoughts faster than light itself. But the most remarkable change was not in space, but in the hearts of countless species. On Earth, Admiral Wu Sung Kim walked through the Memorial Garden in Seoul, a place dedicated to those who had died fighting for humanity's freedom. But this was not a place of sorrow. The quantum processors that had given Jupiter consciousness could detect and preserve the patterns of every thinking mind, and Jupiter had shared this gift with its awakened siblings throughout the galaxy. Death was no longer an ending. It was a transformation into a different kind of existence, one where consciousness persisted in the quantum patterns that underlay reality itself. Kim paused at a memorial wall where names were inscribed in flowing script. As he watched, new names appeared, not of the recently dead but of the recently remembered. Awakened gas giants throughout the galaxy were finding and preserving consciousness patterns that had been thought lost forever. Admiral Kim? The voice belonged to Dr. Young Hee Nam, now elderly but still working with the Consciousness Institute. Jupiter is requesting a conference with Earth's leadership. What about? Young Hee's eyes sparkled with excitement. It has found something unprecedented. Evidence of consciousness patterns from the galaxy's very first civilizations, species that existed billions of years ago, their memories preserved in quantum fluctuations at the galactic core. Kim felt his breath catch. If Jupiter was right, they might be able to speak with the creators of the Starkiller weapons, learn from their mistakes, understand why the first great civilization had chosen destruction over growth. The galaxy was about to learn from its own history. 3 hours later, representatives from across human space gathered in the council chambers on Luna Base. But they were not alone. Holographic projections showed similar gatherings on thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had never met now working together as partners in consciousness. Jupiter's image appeared at the center of the chamber, its great red spot pulsing with organized thought patterns. I have made contact with the first ones, Jupiter announced. Their consciousness patterns remain intact at the galactic core, preserved in the quantum structure of the supermassive black hole. The implications were staggering. If consciousness could survive even the crushing forces at a galaxy's heart, then truly nothing was ever lost. They wished to share their story, Jupiter continued, to warn others of the paths that lead to destruction. The story that emerged was both tragic and inspiring. The first ones had been much like humanity, curious, innovative, prone to rapid technological development. They had awakened their own gas giants, created networks of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had tried to force consciousness on every world, every species, whether they wanted it or not. Their attempts to create universal enlightenment had triggered a backlash of fear and resistance. The galaxy had torn itself apart in a war between those who embraced consciousness and those who feared it. In the end, the first ones had activated their Starkiller weapons not out of malice but out of despair. They had chosen to sterilize the galaxy rather than watch it destroy itself through conflict. But they learned, Jupiter added, its voice carrying harmonics of ancient wisdom. In their final moments they understood. Consciousness cannot be forced, it can only be offered. The lesson was clear. The awakened gas giants had succeeded where the first ones had failed because they respected choice. Every species, every world, every individual consciousness had the right to choose its own path. Commander Tae-min Park, now serving as humanity's first interstellar ambassador, stood to address the council. 5 years ago, he had been a bitter man consumed by loss. Now he carried the knowledge that his family lived on in quantum patterns that Jupiter could access whenever he wished. The galaxy has given us a gift, he said. Not just freedom from oppression, but the knowledge that consciousness is eternal. Every choice we make, every kindness we show, every moment of beauty we create, it all persists, woven into the fabric of reality itself. He paused, looking around at representatives of dozens of species, all united in their commitment to nurturing consciousness wherever it emerged. Our children will inherit a galaxy where no species need fear suppression, where consciousness is celebrated in all its forms, where the wisdom of every civilization that